This is John King. I'm speaking with Congressman Ryan Zinke from the state of Montana, just sworn in today, I understand, right?
Absolutely, and it's an honor to represent Montana as the sole representative.
And
Time to roll the sleeves up and get to work.
So what is the first priority for you in the new Congress?
I think the core all revolves around having a prosperous economy. You can't have a strong military unless you have a prosperous economy. You can't have sound environmental practices and good schools and infrastructure and Social Security without having a prosperous economy. And a lot of it has to do with making sure that we can innovate, think out of the box, that the regulations are appropriate, not arbitrary, and certainly not excessive. I think what I anticipate is very quickly bills that pass along bipartisan lines will come across the desk, and we'll quickly send the president a Keystone, probably a Heroes Act, which I'm co-sponsoring, to help veterans gain employment, meaningful employment, without having small companies pay a penalty, on the 50-employee mandate. So that there's a lot of bipartisan legislation that I think will quickly get passed. And about this Congress, I'm enthusiastic and optimistic because there's no hiding. The Speaker can't blame it on Reid. Reid can't hide or can't protect the President because he's no longer there. Mitch McConnell, the President of the Senate, he's not going to be able to lead unless he can gain 60 votes, which he says he's a leader and can. And I think as long as Congress exercises constitutional authority and passes legislation that is reasonable and makes sense, the president's going to have a choice and either sign it or veto it, become more isolated, and it is likely that we'll override a veto if the legislation, again, is meaningful, appropriate, and addresses some of the challenges that face the country.
Have you spoken with John Tester while you've been over there much?
Well, tomorrow we Montanans have a morning coffee. So tomorrow I'm looking forward to doing that with Senators Daines and Tester. I have spoken to John since the election a couple of times, just making sure that we need to work together as Montanans and put Montana first. And I do think, and it's not just rhetoric, is that my background, I've never really viewed life through a blue or a red lens. It's been red, white, and blue. I think it's time to put America in the front seat and put politics in the back. Now, having said that, I do believe that our Constitution is a wonderful document that everyone should read. Congress should exercise its constitutional authority. And, smaller government, efficient government, innovation, being able to think out of the box, the freedoms we enjoy, need to be protected.
Well, one of the questions I've had my callers asking me to ask you is how you're going to make the decision, I believe you already have now, on whether or not to re-elect John Boehner as Speaker of the House. I was listening to your interview with Aaron Flint this morning, and you seemed to be undecided and were choosing between Boehner and Gohmert at the time.
I talked to the Speaker, about it because my concern was, and I think a lot of Montanans share a concern that will you do what you say you're going to do? Will you address the big things that face our country, immigration, which is securing the southern border first? If we don't do that, nothing else matters. Are you going to address fiscal restraint, and how are we going to address an $18 trillion debt? And there was questions, about the Speaker's ability to lead. And so before I cast my vote, I wanted to be assured that he was going to exercise, along with the leadership team of McCarthy and Scalise, that he would be an effective leader. Now, one thing about a roll call vote is, and since my last name is Z, I was the last to vote. And it became clear it was really about Nancy Pelosi and John Boehner. Louis Gohmert polled 3 votes. Daniel Webster pulled 13. So really it was a question between whether you supported Nancy Pelosi or John Boehner. And at that point, I was proud to cast a vote for John Andrew Boehner as the next speaker, in which he is now Speaker of the House. But if he doesn't perform, I can tell you that the sentiment, at least from this congressman, is that no one is safe, and he has to be held accountable. And if he doesn't do the job that he said he's going to do, then I'll be one of the first in line to look at a leadership.
A few minutes ago, you said that you had confidence that you'd be able to override a presidential veto on Keystone XL. What gives you that confidence?
Well, I think it may not be the first one. It may not be Keystone the first time, but if he vetoes it, you'll see it again. And I think the more if he decides to veto legislation that is bipartisan, there's over 100 bills that sat in Harry Reid's desk that came out of the House that were bipartisan, had bipartisan support. I think what we'll see if he vetoes bills that are in the best interest of this country, clearly, that have bipartisan support, that he's going to be further and further isolated, and we'll have enough votes because one thing about politics and the House is your elections every 2 years, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. I mean, you got to understand who your boss is, and that's your district. For me, it's easy. It's the whole state of Montana. And, my job is to represent everybody and to listen and to make the best decision for Montana and America.
All right, final question. Now, you've served in the Montana State Legislature, which is also getting underway this week. What are the biggest differences from your point of view and your experience of going through the U.S. Congress and getting, the on-the-ground kind of boot camp to be a member of Congress as it was over here in the state of Montana?
I think among Montanans, we understand what it's like to live in a rural state. We enjoy, clean water and honey and access, and whether you're a Democrat or Republican, there's a lot in common. In Montana, we don't like excessive government. We're a little more independent. Not so, in some of these districts that are on either coast, and oftentimes a rural state like Montana, even though we're endowed with a lot of resources and water and big state, we don't have a lot of population. We have one congressman, and a lot of times legislation either by design or unintended consequences, tends to overlook, the rural issues that are important to Montana. And this is where I think being a former Navy SEAL and wanting to pound the desk and articulate what's important for Montana and making sure that our voice is heard, it's incredibly important. So it's, I'm an optimist. I think that this last election, I don't think it's really about Republicans and Democrats. It was about Americans wanting to get things done. And I think America will breathe a huge sign of relief when this Congress can move the ball to the field.
All right. Well, Congressman Ryan Zinke, have a safe and enjoyable day, your first day as a congressman in D.C.
Well, thank you. Come visit. I'm in Cannon 113 in the first floor. I have 3 flags out front, of course, the U.S., the great state of Montana, and the United States Navy SEAL flag. So I'm easy to find.
Now, is it true? Are you the first SEAL to serve in the House?
I am the first Navy SEAL to serve in the House. There was a Navy SEAL, also an alumni of SEAL Team 1, to serve in the Senate, and that was Bob Terry, a Medal of Honor winner from SEAL Team 1.
Awesome. Well,
Well,
thanks for bringing that legacy to D.C. and from Montana.
Thank you very much. God bless America and the troops that defend her.
God bless America.